Hi, John Graham, Frontline Resources, HoustonISO9000.com. In 9001, 2015, let's talk for a minute about 6.1, risk and opportunities. A lot of people focus really hard on the risk and they forget there's an equal weighting here on opportunities. And if you look at the notes at the end of that section, there's a nice paragraph on risk and another nice one on opportunities. But remember, notes are not requirements, they're clarifications. The shalls are in the actual text. Now, the text there is rather vague. It gives you a lot of opportunities of different things you can do. But it does say you're going to go back and consider what you did in 4.1, which are your internal and external issues. Remember, we made a list of those earlier. Also, 4.2, interested parties and their requirements. We'll consider those. Not necessarily process every one as a risk, but we're going to consider, and a few of those will make our list of risks that need to be processed. It also says you'll consider your processes that you set up in 4.4 and look at the risk within your own QMS processes for your own business. So be careful, make sure you go through those and consider what are risks really? It's where you're exposed. I like to tell people this. Think about if I could write each risk on a 3x5 card and set it out on the conference room table, then I could magically push a button on the side of the table and it would go 3D and show me the size of the risk. Well, I'd have some that were small risks, some that were medium, some that were large. If they were small, I probably don't really care about them anyway. If they're large, I bet you already know about them and you're already working on them. So what about the ones that are in the middle? That's the ones I most want to care about that are medium and growing. And that's where you really benefit from doing this exercise in ISO 9001. So think about this. I've seen lots of clients get a lot of good value out of this. So you may want to start with a spreadsheet, and on the first tab, go ahead and list out your key issues from 4.1, your internal and external issues, the ones that really matter you think you have risk exposure. 4.2, interested parties and their requirements. Think about where there's some exposure there. Also 4.4, some people put exposure in 4.2 for insurance companies. One risk is we could lose our insurance if we don't follow their requirements in their reporting. Or the other risk is we don't lose it, it goes up and becomes very expensive. And we don't want that to happen, of course. And then also going through your processes and looking where your exposures are. You'll usually find plenty of them there. So you could put those on a tab on an Excel spreadsheet, and then on the fourth tab, start listing out and processing your risk, and maybe a fifth tab, have opportunities. Now, let's talk about, for a second, processing those risks. There's a lot of ways to do it. You could use that Excel spreadsheet or have a separate form that shows here is the risk, and then do something like failure modes and effects analysis, which you can look up on, do a web search, and you'll see lots of things for that. And I've given you some examples of forms to do this on with the failure modes and effects analysis. I don't want to get into too many details here, but it gives you a numbering system where you look 1 through 10, multiply them together to get a risk priority number to see what the size of your risk are, and the ones that are medium or the large ones, you really want to pay attention to those. So use that for processing. It's an easy way. But note, the standard doesn't say you have to use failure modes and effects analysis. There are other ways of processing risk. They're just not as popular. You can look those up. You can also look in ISO 9000, ISO 31000. You could buy copies of that, and there's references to that at the end of 9001. And it'll tell you about those different tools. So you can look at that and it'll give you some ideas. So now let's shift to opportunities. Opportunities are different. Those are usually positive things. But now people think we have to look at the opportunities as they come with a risk. Some risks have opportunities with them, or some opportunities have risk. You know, you say, I'm going to take the risk of expanding into South America. What's the opportunity? We're going to make a lot more revenue. Well, the risk of, cultural problems or whatever, market issues, currency fluctuations or things like that. Now I can look at other opportunities, expanding into a new service market, but there's risks that go with that. Knowledge risk, all kind of internet risk, business risk. There's just all kinds of possible risks. Make sure you consider those. Now, it might also have opportunities that have no risk, no known risk with that, and I'm going to process those. But I'd recommend you have some kind of list with these are our opportunities and who is going to be responsible for those and take action. Now, what the auditors are going to look at, the key thing at the end, when you process risk, whatever method you use, remember a record's not required, but evidence is required. Same with opportunities. The last question they're going to ask you is, have you evaluated the effectiveness of them? That's very important. And you also have to do that again and show evidence of it in your management review. So make sure you thoroughly look at risk and opportunities separately. You may want to make a spreadsheet, list out the 4.1 requirements, 4.2, 4.4 processes, then process risk and opportunities separately. But in any way you do it, some kind of evidence is required, and you are required to evaluate the effectiveness.